Now officially, Donald Trump is demanding that Ukraine hand over Donbas to Putin, and the United States President's team has openly stated that it's time to use all tools to pressure Ukraine. European officials say talks to end the Ukraine war under the United States peace plan are deadlocked due to the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The Americans insist that Kyiv must one way or another leave Donbas, its sacred Ukrainian land, handing over to Russia the territories it couldn't conquer. Ukraine is categorically opposed, emphasizing that the current front line must be taken into account when making peace. However, the United States continues to put pressure, trying to speed up the agreement. Trump himself admitted today that Russia is demanding Ukraine's surrender, while the United States is simply continuing to think about how to achieve this. Now in Washington, they don't even hide it. As United States Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker said today, the United States President understands how to put pressure on Ukraine to force it to make a peace deal. That's the ally we have. My name is Alexei Pesci. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and write any detailed comment. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel Pesci News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so by donating through the links and details in the description of this video. So, today's sources from Politico reported that Donald Trump's team insists that Ukraine should give Russia parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions that Putin has not been able to capture by military means. Moreover, the United States openly admitted that they are not thinking about how to force Russia to make peace, but about how to make Ukraine give Ukrainian land to the Russians. They offer various conditions and motives, but all focus on forcing Ukraine to surrender its territories. Recent negotiations focused on Steven Witkoff and Jared Kushner pressuring Ukrainians to accept capitulation. According to Politico, the armed forces of Ukraine currently control about 30% of Donbas, including Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, where more than 100,000 people live. Kyiv has repeatedly stated that territorial concessions contradict the constitution, and that if Russia gains the entire region, it will use it as a springboard for further conquests. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed participation on December 8. In Kyiv, in Kyiv, in Kyiv, Kyiv, in Kyiv. Russia demands we surrender territories, but we absolutely refuse. That's why we're fighting. The United States is seeking a compromise today, however, Ukraine is firmly sticking to its position regarding territorial integrity. At the same time, I would like to remind you that back in August, Volodymyr Zelensky said that it would take Russia about 4 years to fully capture Donbas. And here, a European official made a statement, quote, "That's why it's important how America will act as a mediator or whether it will take the side of the Russians." Ukraine is also waiting for clarity regarding what security guarantees the United States is ready to provide. And the initial version of Trump's original peace plan assumed that Crimea and Donbas would be de facto recognized as Russian, while Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions would be divided along the line of contact. At the same time, the Ukrainian armed forces withdraw from the non-occupied part of Donetsk region, which is declared a neutral demilitarized buffer zone and handed over to Russian control. This definition is the most terrible, the wildest I have ever heard. In diplomatic terms, it is once again proposed to call this territory a neutral demilitarized buffer zone, but under Russian control. Well, I don't know what diplomatic language this is even written in. I mean, it's so ridiculous that, well, I think any school kid would understand that something doesn't add up here. Is it neutral or controlled by Russia? After that, negotiations took place between the United States and Ukraine in Geneva, where Kyiv rejected territorial concessions, and the plan was adjusted and presented to Russia. But President Vladimir Putin was not satisfied. He also wanted international recognition of the seized territories, not just the transfer of Donbas. There are significant objections to the document, said Putin's aide Yuri Ushakov. He noted that some issues regarding Ukraine require the Americans to make radical changes in their documents. On December 4, Putin stated that Russia will get Donbas in any case. Earlier, he demanded that Kyiv withdraw its troops from the region, emphasizing that without this and the further it goes, the more demands Putin makes. Now there's already a demand for the world to recognize these territories as Russian. Handing over Donbas to Russia, which it has not been able to fully capture either during decades of occupation or since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, would cause a split in Ukrainian society, for which such a scenario is absolutely unacceptable. And you know what? Here's another hybrid tactic from the Kremlin. Putin understands this perfectly well, and that's why he continues to push this idea in order to undermine internal unity in Ukraine. In other words, the idea is to let them give it, expecting Ukraine to become so internally divided with Ukrainians quarreling so much that the situation could turn critical. And today Zelensky noted that for Ukraine, the four most sensitive issues in peace negotiations with the United States are Donbas, money, security guarantees, and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. But Trump is confident that it's necessary to simply give the Russians everything they ask for and not make any demands of Putin. Finally, I'll include a quote from United States Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker, who said Trump's team knows how to pressure Ukraine into a peace deal. Whitaker assured that the United States continues to seek progress and is sending Special Representative Steve Witkoff and the American leader's son-in-law Jared Kushner to the negotiations to help the parties develop a multi-stage and rather complex agreement. Whitaker noted that there was good news this weekend in the context of the negotiations. And then his quote, "I think we are making significant progress. At the same time, it takes both sides to achieve this. President Trump understands how to put pressure on the Russians and Ukrainians to make them strike this deal and keep moving forward. And, I'm optimistic, I'm full of hope." Well, also, Whitaker warned that there might come a moment when Trump decides that reaching a deal is impossible. And then Trump, you know what he'll do? He'll walk away from these negotiations, refuse, and say, well, it didn't work out in 24 hours or in 100 days it didn't work out at all. But the most paradoxical thing in Whitaker's statement is that Trump's team knows how to put pressure on Ukraine. I'll repeat, Ukraine is the victim of this war, and Russia is the insane, bloody aggressor that attacked its neighbor absolutely without justification. These unwashed savages shouted about Nazism and more. In Ukraine, they invaded our country, bomb Ukrainian cities, steal everything they see. It's just ridiculous. Remember in 2022 how we laughed at them stealing toilets and microwaves? These are savages who invaded another country. And now they're putting us on the same level as these Russians. They say Trump has tools to put pressure on both the victim of the war and the aggressor in this war so that they finally come to a peace agreement. The pressure should be put on the Russians, on these unwashed savages who attack all their neighbors. Russia is probably the only country in the world that hasn't gone a single decade in its history without attacking someone. Of course, for the Russians. In schools, kids are told Russia has never lost a war. But the truth is, first of all, Russia has lost wars, and secondly, Russia usually attacked a weaker opponent and presented it as some kind of great victory. But that's not the case with Ukraine. Here, it really failed. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to like. And let me remind you, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. That's all for now. Take care, goodbye. Subtitles by Simon.